newspapers now on the programme. We're going to start off in Spain, those ongoing reactions to the situation in the enclave of Ceuta bordering Morocco. Some 8,000 migrants arriving in just a week.
That's right, Stuart. Yesterday, we saw Spanish papers accusing Moroccan authorities of letting people cross the border intentionally. And there's a similar tone today in the Spanish press. El País headlines that Morocco is pushing tension with Spain to the limit. Catalan paper El Periódico, meanwhile, writes that Morocco is challenging not only Spain, but the entire European Union. They've chosen the same photo as El País. You'll notice that's a Spanish security agent holding a baby up out of the water. A reminder that this is a humanitarian crisis as well as a diplomatic one. Right-wing papers in Spain have really shifted their blame onto Socialist President Pedro Sanchez today. ABC headlines that the government is incapable of responding to the blackmail from Rabat. La Razón, meanwhile, criticizes the government for ignoring Morocco's warnings about the Polisario Front. Now, that's the group that's fighting for the independence of Western Sahara, a region that is claimed by Morocco. Spain took in the group's leader for COVID treatment back in the end of April, which is what led to this diplomatic hostility between the two countries.
And you found quite a lot of criticism of that, haven't you, in the Moroccan papers?
Yeah, that's one of the issues being raised by the paper Express today. Their headline here reads, "Between Madrid and Rabat, rien ne va plus." Nothing's working out anymore, basically. The paper sees Morocco's decision to recall its ambassador to Madrid as a sign of just how serious the discord is. The paper is also accusing Spanish authorities of beating Moroccan migrants and treating them like invaders. Now, despite the current anger, another Moroccan paper, Aujourd'hui Le Maroc, emphasizes that Morocco and Spain are condemned to have good neighborly relations, even if they don't always work together in perfect harmony.
Let's move to a subject that we haven't talked about for a while. This is Guantanamo Bay Detention Center. The US has cleared 3 prisoners there for release.
That's right, Stuart. And one of them is actually the oldest detainee, a 73-year-old man from Pakistan. The LA Times explains that he has been being held for more than 16 years on suspicion of ties to al-Qaeda, but he has never been charged with a crime. The same is true of the 2 other detainees who have been cleared for release. None of them were ever charged, despite being in Guantanamo for years. While this is a step towards potential freedom, it's unclear when exactly the prisoners will actually get released and where they're going to be sent. The New York Times also explains that there are still 40 remaining detainees in Guantanamo, 9 of whom, including these men, have been approved for release. That leaves 31 others, though, so Biden still really has his work cut out for him in fulfilling that promise to close the prison.
Let's come here to France. That big story here in France today. Papers marking the country's big reopening after 6 months.
That's right, Stuart. And I asked you this earlier. I'm going to ask you again. This question comes from La Croix. What will you be doing today?
I have to say I will not be going to the terraces, partly because it's freezing cold, but also because they're going to be packed, aren't they?
Yeah.
I'll wait a couple of days.
I have friends that want to go, and I'm deciding.
Yeah.
I'm hesitating. I'm going to ask Brian, what are
I'm going to sit it out
Plan?
as well for a couple of days.
Yeah.
I don't trust the weather, for one thing.
Come back to it.
All right, hesitancy here in the France 24 newsroom. But in general, people are excited to get out to their neighborhood cafes. That's according to La Croix, who spoke to a lot of people. The paper also spoke to a theater director who is excited to rediscover the magic of a standing ovation because, of course, theaters, cinemas, all of that reopening. So lots of hope, but also doubts, as we read on the front page of L'Humanité. Only about a third of people in France have had at least one dose of the vaccine. There are also those new variants to worry about, and the economic situation does remain quite tough for a lot of people. So the feeling today is perhaps best summarized as cautious relief.
Going to talk about these now. Still got mine hidden behind the desks. Masks are still required here in France. So we don't have this next problem yet, do we?
That's right, we don't, Stuart. But the Wall Street Journal is explaining that over in the US, where people are now allowed to take off their masks, there has been a lot of confusion in the workplace for coworkers who are discovering each other's faces for the first time and just don't recognize each other. People can look pretty different with and without masks. You see 2 examples here. I think you can recognize them. On the right, perhaps she looks different, but I think the hair is also playing a role. Yeah. Anyway, it's led to a lot of socially awkward situations where one person recognizes the other, but then the other person does not recognize them in turn, and so people have to apologize, and it's very embarrassing. I know that's an experience that I had here when we all started wearing masks, so it's funny to see it going in the other direction.
That's going to be weird because I would have thought there would just be a problem when you start wearing a mask rather
right,
than
when you
when
can't.
you
I think
take
it's
it
for
off.
maybe people who haven't actually met, who've met during the
Well, that's
pandemic
certainly
and have
true.
never seen the bottom half of it.
Only spoken online. That's
Yeah.
the case for many people as well. Very true. Thank you very much, Alison Sargent, with the papers on France 24. We recognise her anywhere, wouldn't we?